1. Knowledgeable. 2. I can't remember diddly squat. 3. Capture my attention. 4. Inherently. 5. Episodes. 6. It isn't really my thing. 7. Medieval. 8. Blockbuster movies. 9. Modern day appliances. 10. Real estate. 11. Sought after. 12. A central location. 13. A lively nightlife. 14. Trendy. 15. Go for a stroll. 16. Downside. 17. Influx. 18. Drive the price of street through the roof. 19. Help somebody out. 20. Run out of. 21. Lend somebody something. Lend street to SB 22. Borrow street from SB 23. Keep an eye on. 24. Look after. 25. Squillions of 26. Depend on. 27. When times are tough. 28. In an ideal world. 29. Exercise equipment. 30. Educational facilities. 31. Medical facilities. 32. Support locally owned businesses. 33. The local economy. 34. Chain stores. 35. Negotiate. 36. Fixed prices. 37. Bargain. 38. Have first preference for. 39. Attend school. 40. I don't see the point in of. 41. Uphold. 42. Gifted children. Part 1. Topic: History.
1. What did you study in history lessons when you were at school?
Well, I can't really remember much about my history lessons, to be honest. I think I found them quite boring, I suppose. I do remember learning about the history of my country though, and how it was formed. History is not a subject that I've ever been very knowledgeable in, though I did enjoy watching it on YouTube recently.
2. Did you enjoy studying history at school?
No, not really. In fact, I can't remember diddly squat from history classes in school, so I think my teacher must not have been very good. He obviously didn't manage to capture my attention for very long. I guess history is one of the hardest subjects to teach, 'cause it is just so inherently boring, isn't it?
3. How often do you watch TV programs about history now? Why? Why not?
Not very often at all, actually. However, as I mentioned before, I did watch a great little history series on YouTube recently. I think it was called Crash Course, World History. There were about 40 episodes or so, but they only went for 10 to 15 minutes each, so along with the great animation, it actually grabbed my attention for long enough to watch 1 or 2 episodes a day.
4. What period in history would you like to learn more about? Why? Why not?
Well, I've never really thought about that before, because history isn't really my thing, but I suppose that the medieval period fascinated me a little. I do love watching movies set in that time period. Blockbuster movies like Braveheart, Robin Hood, and King Arthur. Back when you had to travel everywhere by horse and there were no modern-day appliances or electricity.
Part 2. Describe the neighborhood you lived in when you were a child. You should say where in your town or city the neighborhood was, what kind of people lived there, what it was like to live in this neighborhood, and explain whether you would like to live in this neighborhood in the future.
Well, fortunately for me, I grew up in a nice and peaceful suburb of Hanoi, called Quang Yên. The suburb is located next to West Lake, which is on the northern side of the old city. My neighborhood is located just a couple of streets from the lake, so it was pretty quiet and peaceful there when I was growing up. I guess just regular people lived there in the past. Probably some important government people also, I suppose, because it's not too far from a lot of the government offices in town. Most people were nice and friendly in my neighborhood, and most people knew each other in my street, not like today. Nowadays there is a lot of real estate development in the city, and my suburb has become quite a sought-after area to live, particularly by a lot of foreigners who live and work in Hanoi. I guess they like living there because it is quite a central location, and has all the facilities that people need, and a lively nightlife with nice restaurants, bars and cafes. When I was growing up it was really peaceful in that area because it is next to the lake, and there wasn't as much construction there like there is today. There weren't as many people living there when I was growing up either. It wasn't really considered a trendy place, like it is today. I guess I would still like to live in this neighborhood in the future because even though there is a lot of construction there these days, it is still quite a peaceful place to live because you can always go for a stroll by the lake, which is usually pretty quiet. The only downside to living in this part of town these days is the influx of foreigners coming to live here, which drives the price of real estate through the roof. Luckily for me, my parents own a house here, so I can always stay there with them until I can afford my own place.
Part 3. Topic: Neighbors.
1. What sort of things can neighbors do to help each other?
Well, I suppose there are a few common things that neighbors might do to help each other out. For example, when you are cooking something but you have run out of some common ingredient and it's too late to go to the shop, then maybe you can ask your neighbor to lend you some. Also, it's quite common for neighbors to keep an eye on each other's places, to look out for thieves and things like that. Robberies aren't too common in my neighborhood, but they do happen occasionally. When I was young, my mother used to look after our neighbor's dogs sometimes too, when they went away on holiday somewhere. I'm sure there are a million more things that good neighbors can do for each other.
2. How well do people generally know their neighbors in your country?
I think that depends on whether you live in the city or in the countryside, or even whether you live in a house or live in an apartment building. People who live in the countryside often know their neighbors quite well, I think. Probably because they see them more often, and because there are less people living in the countryside, so people tend to know a lot more people in their neighborhood or village. In the city though, people don't always know their neighbors very well, especially if they live in an apartment building with squillions of other people. I guess when you live in an apartment building you just don't see your neighbors very often, so you don't get much chance to socialize at all.
3. How important do you think it is to have good neighbors?
Well, I guess it's quite important really. I mean, nobody wants to live next door to bad neighbors, do they? People naturally prefer to live next door to someone that they can trust, or depend on when times are tough. Or someone that is respectful and doesn't make loud noises all the time, or play music loudly when you are not trying to go to sleep. I guess in an ideal world you would be great friends with all the people in your neighborhood.
Topic: Facilities in cities.
1. Which facilities are most important to people living in cities?
I guess that would depend upon different types of people. On the one hand, younger people probably want to have access to entertainment facilities, like movie theaters and shopping malls, while elderly people or those who like exercise might want to have access to parks, exercise equipment, and maybe gyms and fitness centers. I suppose people also want access to good educational facilities and things like hospitals and medical facilities too.
Point 2. How does shopping in small local shops differ from shopping in large city center shops?
Well, I suppose there are a few differences between the two. Firstly, by shopping in small local shops, you are often supporting locally owned businesses, which means more money into the local economy. A lot of large city center shops are chain stores which aren't owned by local people, which means a lot of the money spent in these shops leaves the local economy, which is quite often not a good thing. Furthermore, when shopping in smaller local shops you can quite often negotiate the prices of things, whereas in the bigger stores in cities, you can't bargain for a better deal because the prices are usually fixed. That's from my personal experience anyway.
3. Do you think children should always go to the school nearest to where they live?
No, not really. I mean, I think that children should be able to go to any school they want to go to if there is room for them in a class. I think children who live near the school should have first preference to go there, and if there are any extra spaces for other children from other areas, then they could also attend that school too. I don't really see any point in traveling long distances to go to school. I think that all schools should try to uphold the same high standard of education. I guess some schools might specialize in a particular field of education, or have a special sports program for gifted children. In those situations, I think it is okay for children to choose a particular school.